He is the voice of TCU Athletics, Brian Estridge, a great fan of ours, a good a friend of the show as well, and we are of what he does as TCU now 9-0, number 4 in the country. The standings come out tomorrow, Texas at Austin this weekend. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and David Smoak, 365 Sports. Brian, I mean, this journey continues, and they have been one of the great stories in college football. Your thoughts about where they are now at 9-0?
Yeah, I tell you, it has been a fun ride, that's for sure, fellas. Thanks for having me on, by the way. Good to hear you guys. I think there's a couple of things that are going on here right now. One is you got a rejuvenated fan base at TCU, and that's been fun to watch. If you look at the crowds that have been at Amon Carter Stadium here for the last couple of weeks, I think you got a group of players that have bought in fully with this new coaching staff, and they did it from day one. And they've been inspired, they've been built up, their confidence levels at an all-time high right now, and I think that's been fun to watch. And they're talented too. You know, they've got a nice scheme here that they all believe in, and they think they have the best stuff, as pitchers say. You know, and when you have all of that mixed together, it makes for a fun ride. Sitting right now at 9-0, but maybe the toughest test of the year coming up Saturday night.
Brian, why do they play so free and easy when they're behind in games?
You know, because it's funny because when you say that, nobody panics and they don't venture away from the game plan. In fact, Sonny talked about that this week. He said, really Garrett Riley, who's the offensive coordinator, young guy, he said he's more patient than I am. You know, I'm like, hey, let's run from 4 verts. We got to get a big play. We got to do this. And Garrett's like, no, Coach, we got it. We're going to keep running the football. We're going to keep doing what we do because our stuff works. And so I think a lot of that is because of that. For one thing, you got a guy like Garrett Riley who has been patient. I think you got great halftime adjustments coming from Joe Gillespie, the defensive coordinator. But it really all started in the spring and summer with Kaz Kazadi, who you guys know quite well, and what he has done mentally for these guys. They think that they're going to win every game. There is no panic in them. They don't feel like there's a reason why they shouldn't be confident, and they are. And so it plays out in games even when they get behind.
Brian, how would you describe the absence of Quentin Johnston has affected this offense, good, bad, or otherwise, and any update on kind of how they feel about his progress and where he is ahead of Texas?
Yeah, I think he'll be able to go Saturday night. I mean, he wanted to play on Saturday. You know, he got hurt 2 weeks prior at West Virginia, or a week prior, I guess it was, at West Virginia, and came back in that ball game. They gave him a day off for seniority during the week, and then this week, he started the game, but then they ended up taking him out just because it just wasn't 100%. And they said, you know what, let's see if we can get by this week without you, get you ready for Texas. I think he'll be 100% coming up this one. You know, yeah, does it change the game? There's no question. I mean, he's that good of a player. But what it does do, it allows some other guys to step up. Darius Davis had a 23-yard touchdown catch. Tay Barber had a couple of 3 big catches in this one. I was a little surprised they didn't get the tight end involved more than they did. And so I think those are some things that, they got a lot of weapons. In fact, Malcolm Kelly, who you guys know played at Oklahoma, the wide receivers coach, I asked him earlier in the year, I said, when you guys go to game plan for a particular opponent, I said, what's the biggest advantage you have going? And he said the fact that we have multiple weapons, that they can kind of play any game you name. You know, if you're gonna put an extra man in the box, and we're gonna throw it over top of you with these wide receivers, with Savion and Quentin and guys like that. If you're gonna allow us to run the football, Kendre Miller's gonna go for 158 on you. So I think being versatile like that helps as well in the game plan, guys.
So Texas, obviously, with a nice, impressive win, up 31-10 at one point in the first half. They were so explosive, and so we know TCU is as well. What are some of the? I know it's early, but a couple of things. They run the ball well. TCU, of course, they run the ball well. Both teams seem like they could pop 40 or 50 on anybody. Your thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to a couple of things. I think you can't turn the football over. TCU's got to get some pressure on Quinn Ewers. I think they've done a nice job at Texas of not allowing him to lose the game for them, especially when they got up against Kansas State. And I think TCU's got to try to get some pressure on him. Got to be good tacklers against Bijan and those guys. I mean, those 2 of the best running backs in the country, obviously, that they'll be seeing. The offensive line for Texas has been good. And then this offense, I mean, I think TCU's offense has to start faster. You got the punt return for a touchdown last week from Darius to kind of jumpstart things, but really it wasn't until the second half, really the fourth quarter, when Max went 4 for 4 for 53 yards, 2 scores in that fourth quarter, where they really started to click. And so I think they got to start faster, because Texas is going to. Texas seemingly starts with a new set of plays that you haven't seen every week, and that gets them out to these big leads. And then once they settle into what they do, folks get a nice beat on them. And so I think you got to be prepared for anything when you see this offense to start, but then got to keep it in front of you. Don't let them get out to that big lead, and then you can kind of wear them down. And then, the X factor that everybody wants to talk about is the fact that Gary Patterson's there as a defensive specialist, or whatever the hell they call him. And so, I think that, you and I both know that he's staying up all night trying to grind on TCU, that they'll have this ball game circled. And so I think that'll be a nice chess match to watch as well.
Will he stay up as much as he would if it was Baylor?
Yeah, I think so, brother. I think TCU has replaced Baylor in that category, and that man's thinking right now. I don't. I think he would much rather take out TCU at this point. So, and that's okay. That's what college football is all about, right? And it's a fraternal organization. It's a small world. Everybody knows everybody, and there's history there. And so, I think that I know that these guys, though, it's interesting, and I'm being genuine when I say that these guys aren't even talking about it really. This program has moved on. These players have moved on. They're excited about where they are. They're excited about all that's happening to them right now, and the new kind of mood that's around here, the vibe of the program, if you will. And I think that that is motivation enough for them week in and week out.
Brian, with the potential national implications of every game as they tick forward, I know that that's going to be hanging around for the team, but does the fact that they are in the most balanced conference in America kind of make it at least a little bit easier for Sonny Dykes to focus them on the week-to-week battles, opposed to, oh man, if we win these next 4, like what could happen?
God, funny, Paul, you said that, because we talked about that this week on his TV show, the fact that, hey, you haven't had to go through that grouping of win these 3, take a break, win these 4, cutting the season into pieces. It has truly been week-by-week compartments for this team, and I think you're on to something there. I think it's important that this team doesn't get ahead of itself. And, what's different, though, this year as opposed to years past is they've taken every game as the next biggest game. Whether it was Tarleton or SMU or Colorado or you got in the league play, all of them have been important to them. And so I think they're going to continue to do that. Here's the other thing about, this group is that they know that, with this balance in this league, there are no more New Mexicos on the roster, which when you're in the Mountain West, you always had that opportunity to go, okay, we may not have to play our best to win this ball game. I think in this league, you saw with Texas Tech last week, you better play well or you're going to get beat in this league.
Brian, is that the reason why they found themselves, you feel like, in so many close games there at the end, is just because of the competition that they're facing? Or is there something else underlying there as well, where they do have to find themselves digging out of a hole seemingly week after week?
Yeah, when they were in a gauntlet, remember those games where they had to come from behind? Those were 4 top 25 teams. Yeah. That's more than, Alabama ain't played 4 ranked teams. Georgia hadn't played 4 ranked teams. Michigan has it. And to get 4 wins on the road already, which TCU has done. Those guys haven't done that either. So I think it's just it's who you had to play. And at some point, all of us in the Big 12 have to kind of bow our neck and just be jerks about it and say, listen, you guys don't know what you're talking about when it comes to this league. Paul mentioned the fact that it's the most balanced league in the country. It's the hardest league in the country because you play everybody. You don't get to to avoid somebody because of the schedule. And that's what makes this league great. And I think we got to continue to brag on that, man, that, hey, this is the league where that happens. This isn't a league where you might not have to play Ohio State for 3 years. No, in this league, you're going to play everybody. And that's where we, at least for now, until the other guys come in next year or whatever. But while we can, you might as well brag on it, right?
Yep.
Brian, is there any talk about, obviously, the college football playoffs? Sonny Dykes kind of alluded that there's not really that. Is it there? Is there that in the background?
I haven't heard that. I think you got to think that way. I think that way. But that's just me, I'm like, hey, if I'm Brett Yormark and TCU's undefeated at the end of the year, I cancel a championship game, and say, okay, I got me a team in here. I'm not going to risk it by having somebody beat them in the championship game. But But that's my goofy way of thinking. So I haven't heard anybody around the program talking about it. I haven't, there are no posters up or anything like that. That's not that's not the way these guys don't set. It's funny because you know how coaches are, and different programs are different. These guys didn't set like a goal tree at the beginning of the year. These guys said, "Let's go win the first game." All right, now let's go win the second game. And that's kind of the way their approach has been. It hasn't been, hey, let's try to, let's win 8 or, whatever it is. No, it's week by week by week, and that's what they've been doing.
They have absolutely done it. The resiliency came back 28-10 to Kansas State, came back against others. I mean, damn, they're hard to get to. They're hard. You have to kill them. I think you got to cut their head off like a snake.
Isn't that that was the old Darrell Royal thing about their cockroaches? Back in the day, he was talking about TCU. The Frogs beat them in 1961 when they were number 1. He said they're kind of like cockroaches. You can't kill them; they're just getting away. And so I think that that's kind of the mentality that they've taken on. But listen, fellas, you and I know that the way this league is set up, there's 3 difficult games still remaining for TCU. There's a lot of football to be played. Nobody needs to be making reservations in the Big 12 championship game just yet.
What worries you most about Texas, Brian?
Their physical nature, the fact that they can lean on you with that offensive line, the fact that those running backs are so hard to bring down. I think that would be it. But, when have we ever said that about Texas being physical? I mean, we do know they're specimens, and we do know that their recruiting classes have been top 5, for the last 85 years. But, I just think that I think if they wanted to, that could cause trouble for TCU, if they just said, hey, we're just going to get too tight, we're going to just jam it down their throat for 4 quarters. But I don't know if they have the patience to do that.
Thank you very much, Brian. Have a great broadcast in Austin. TCU 9-0. Will be interesting to see with the college football standings show, but right now, number 4 in the AP poll. That's Brian Estridge, voice of TCU. We break here, come back with the voice of